Want to learn more about PSM topics? Be sure to check out the Creating and Maintaining Optical Transport Services using the BTI 7000 series or BTI 7800 series courses. For full details, just visit juniper.net/course/BTI 7000 or BTI 7800. Now let's get to your Learning Byte.
Hello everyone, Greg Lehman here. In this how-to video, I'm going to demonstrate PSM creating an Ethernet service. I already took the liberty of having the PSM client launched and connected into the PSM server that operates in my lab. So what I'll do here is I'll go right to the toolbar and hit service activation, create an Ethernet service. It's going to prompt me for the domain. So this is the various Ethernet domains that may exist in your entire managed network. I have a few of them defined. I'm going to use the simple default, and I'm going to say OK. So as you can see from the screen, I have up top the service attributes region, which defines the MEF service, and then underneath would be information related to the actual ports. So I'm going to enter a service name, and I'm just going to type service, and notice as I typed, some little red exclamation mark came up. I'm like, wow, what's that? I look down here. The service name can only contain alphanumeric or characters underscore. Okay, great. So point here is as you start doing data entry, PSM will validate that information and display warnings or hints as needed. So I'm just going to fix that and use the very imaginative name of test service. My service VLAN, don't care. PSM suggested the next value in use that's available, that's not in use. And certainly not a problem for me to change that if I wanted to. So I'll do that. Right now the max frame size is 1522. For this demo, I will leave it just as the default. Service types. So these are back to the Metro Ethernet Forum definition of services. So we have the Ethernet private line, private LANs, virtual private lines, virtual private LANs, as well as the various tree private and virtual private. I'm going to have a very basic EP line, so that's your most standard TDM-like pipe that you can create. So I'm going to click that, and I'm just going to map it to a customer just for fun. So that defines the service itself. A service without endpoints is fairly useless, so I'm going to go ahead and add those. And I'm going to use the graphical pane, the services. I'm going to hit the plus. And basically, here's my selection of network elements that were discovered in the domain. So remember earlier on, I selected the domain named default. So these elements are part of that. If you're ever trying to create a service and you cannot find your network element, chances are that that network element has been discovered into a different domain. And either you discovered it in the wrong domain or that network element shouldn't be part of the service that you're creating. So one of those would have to change. So what I'll do is I already have test sets connected to a couple ports on the BTI 7054. That happens to have two virtual switches in it. It's the first virtual switch, and I'm going to go ahead and pick gig 11 and just say, hey, add that as a uni. Click there. My other network element is BTI 7003 as well. I happen to have a couple of PBXs. It's the first virtual switch, and I picked gig 11 just for simplicity. Obviously, the two ports don't have to have the same numerical identifier. And add that as uni. So I'm done. So when I want to make this dialog go away, I can click anywhere else in the real estate and it'll disappear. Before I do that, though, remember that I'm creating an Ethernet private line. So a line by definition is two endpoints. So let's say I'm going to go and try adding another endpoint. I'm just going to, you pick any node and you can pick an endpoint and say add. PSM is basically saying, hey, listen, the maximum count has been exceeded. So PSM will, again, do checks and balances to make sure you're doing the right thing. So now we have the view of the service that will be added. So it's important that this service has yet to be created. So I've never actually applied or activated the changes. So this really exists within the PSM world at this point. So the neat thing here is I can go ahead and I can get a visual representation of the network elements that will be touched as part of that service activation. So when I was creating the service, I really specified only the user network interfaces, the UNIs, the endpoints. I let PSM do its job and automatically provision as it sees fit the NNIs. And that was subtly, as you can see here, it was already always checked by default. And basically you never want to do that or uncheck it because you want PSM to go ahead, know how nodes are interconnected, and again, as needed, provision up the network NNIs. And that's your true A through Z provisioning that PSM will do for you. If you're doing this from the CLI, certainly depending on the actual products, you may have to go individually to every node and enter CLI commands to create the service. So that's where PSM absolutely allows you to rapidly deploy services. So that was, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and activate that service. What I'm going to do now is just go to the Details tab, and you can see a little bit more information about your unis. And for instance, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to add right now a bandwidth service profile against that uni. So if I click on the box itself, I can get a pull-down menu of all the predefined templates, bandwidth profiles that exist. And if I hit the ... dialog indicator, it really says that it's bringing up another dialog box. And the difference here is if I click on a bandwidth profile, I can actually see the values themselves. So the goal here is always to have meaningful names with your bandwidth profiles, but that notwithstanding, if you forget the actual settings, you can use this as a reminder to actually see what those values are. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 1000 meg P2. So, oh look, there's a warning. There's already a bandwidth profile with the selected template on the network element. So what this is saying is that how it works with bandwidth profiles is PSM creates them as templates in the PSM world. The first time you use them, you select it from PSM. Once that's already been pushed down to the network element, down to the device, you will then pick the profile on the device. So basically this is saying, hey, listen, I just need to pick the profile here called device, and notice now the warning has gone away. So I can hit OK. Now I can go down to the other one and do the same thing there. Notice I didn't get the profile or the warning. So what happened on the second one is PSM already had the logic in place to say, okay, this is the profile I want, and it's going to first see if it exists on the template and use, or on the network element, and use that first. Okay. Also, what I can do if I wanted to is go to advanced settings, and I could add descriptions connected to test set, circuit ID information, etc., etc. So I'm going to hit OK. So I'm going to go to the SLA CFM tab. Because this is these nodes happen to be packet VXs, PSM will automatically create these CFM Y1731 CFM maps. As you can see here, these are what they were created. If it was our access gear, the 800s or the 718Es, I can simply push this auto configure button, and it would go ahead and automatically, PSM would automatically configure those. So that's for CFM. SLA. So if I actually want to do SLA measurements, what I can do is I can say, hey, add an SLA pair. So I'm going to click there, and I specify which network element is going to be the initiator for the SLA measurement. So I'm going to hit, for instance, this endpoint, and I have to enter the responders, plural. Well, there happens to only be one uni here that's able to be a responder because it's a line service, so there's two endpoints. So PSM's smart enough that it shows just the other option. I click it, and I hit OK, and that's going to be the responders. So all that being said, I'm happy. I hit activate, and again, an important thing to realize here is when I hit activate, that communicates to the PSM server. The server then will go to the various nodes, and as you can see in the bottom, you access the tasks view, and we look at the task, and as we can see, it's already been created. So again, the flow is that the GUI activates to the server The server starts up a background task, goes to the network elements, provision what it needs to, determines the outcome of that, success and failure, and then communicates that back to the user interface. So it's not until you check, as a user, you check your task and verify that it's the task status and the state that you know that your service is there. So now I can go, and I added that under the default, and that was a private line, and there's my test service. And I'll just give it a minute for the user interface to update here. Okay, it's updated, and I'm just sort of arranging it as to a layout that's reflective of how I have them configured in the lab. But we can see here that there's my Uni endpoint. I hover the mouse. I can see information about the Uni. Obviously, it's port, MAC address, it's layer 1 information, it's layer 2, the CFM maintenance endpoint, that it's an SLA initiator, as well as the service profile that's applied to it. This is 5361 is his MEP. He's the initiator for 4439. If I come over here, you can see that that's 4439. Again, both of these have the service profile. And if I want to, I can right-click and I can actually do a link trace. Okay, there's a 1 minute continuity check message interval, so we have to let that run so that the endpoints discover each other. And that's it. Our service is created and traffic is flowing. Thanks much.
Visit the Juniper Education Services website to learn more about courses. View our full range of classroom, online, and e-learning courses. Learning paths, industry segment and technology-specific training paths. Juniper Network's certification program, the ultimate demonstration of your competence. And the training community, from forums to social media. Join the discussion.